Welcome to Compassionate Care Conversations. My name is Scott Bradley. I'm the owner of Bradley & Son Funeral Home, serving Morris, Union, and Essex County in New Jersey, and SimpleCremationNJ.com, which serves the whole state of New Jersey. I'm a third-generation funeral director, clinical social worker, and a certified psychoanalyst. My mission here is to meet with people who provide compassionate care to the traumatized, the dying, and their stressed caregivers. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce Holly Strelzik. She's the founder and executive director of Center for the Heart. Her nonprofit organization is dedicated to transforming the way individuals, families, and organizations approach grief, end-of-life care, and compassionate leadership. Holly, I got to say, speaking those words impresses me. Your mission is very noble. Can you tell us how you found your way to caring for the dying and bereaved?
It's been a journey. It all started with my own health issues. And as time went on, as I was trying to heal, I had a brain aneurysm and realized that, I was given a gift. At that point, I just wanted to volunteer. So I went into Overlook. I was volunteering. And as time went on, it was clear that I was okay sitting with death because the rooms that I was going into, these individuals, they were 70 and plus, they were dying, families were there, it was tragic. And in walking into some rooms, the sense of just devastation, fear, shock, and me being okay with it. I had no formal training. I came from corporate America. I've worked for big companies all my life. And at that point, I just started realizing that, I can do this. Spending a lot of time talking to individuals that wanted to share their life stories, and all I could do was hold space. And so I learned. I started seeking out what was out there, and serendipitously, programs started showing up, and I started taking them, started going through the trainings. And probably about 14, 15 years ago, I hung my little shingle up and started doing the end-of-life doula work.
Yeah.
And so that was the beginning of it all.
There is something special when one is aware that they can bear witness. I think that's what you're talking about. You were able
That's
to...
exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It really... It feels very sacred to me, and not, I'm not coming to that statement from a very religious standpoint, but it's humbling, it's sacred, it's honoring those individuals, connecting to whatever they believe in, if they believe in anything, and that's where it gets a little, you have to really watch that, because not everyone believes in any power. And at that moment of death and fear and grief, the ability of being able to work with them, talk to them about themselves and what's inside of them. And for some reason, I was able to do that.
Yeah.
Yes, it truly was a gift.
I think we could do a whole nother segment another time on religion, faith, genetics, the will to live. I mean, if you watch a little baby who's newly born, I am absolutely believe that they are aware of death. Their genetics keep them alive by crying, by smiling, doing whatever. And I think as adults, we kind of forget that, but it's deep within us.
It's totally innate. Yeah. It's totally innate. And I'm just going to tell a little story. This is nowhere scripted, but when COVID happened, our grandson moved in with us. And at the time, he was 2.5, and he was just transitioning out of diapers. He said to me before he turned 3, "Grandma, when you get old, I'm going to change your diapers." I mean, that was shocking. And he had, he was too young to understand what I did. But that thought, and that thought that he even knew that was a possibility, was astounding to me. Yeah. Yes, they're totally aware.
Yeah. So you mentioned end-of-life doula work. Mm-hmm. I'm fascinated by that. Yeah. Would you tell the audience, what doula work brings to the dying experience that would otherwise be missing?
Yeah. We are there to provide the most compassionate, nurturing, emotional, grief-informed support. We can do all logistics if that's necessary, coordinate anything that they need, but really it's about what's happening with that individual, to that individual, everyone in the room, meaning their family, their extended family, whatever that family looks like. A lot of times they don't have family, and at that point it is about, everyone wants to be seen and heard and to be able to validate that life for what it was. Some individuals that come to us are very aware and have planned everything and feel comfortable, and they just want to be able to have space for their family members so they can be together. So that's what we create, that space, making sure that that individual who's dying is very validated in what they want for their end. What does that look like? Has any legacy work been done? If not, are they interested? Because especially now, we still have the generations that have stories. They have beautiful stories coming from old countries, coming from hard labor, coming from, all different types of experiences. And I believe in the importance of these future generations understanding their roots and where they came from. And that gives them hope and drive and purpose, right? So we create that space of a legacy project, whatever that is. My own personal experience, my husband was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and that's another big factor in how I came to this, how I formed the nonprofit. But as soon as that happened, we started a tremendous legacy project for him, and what that looks like is his life. And really the story behind it, like who the elders were that came over from Ellis Island, what their lives were like. So honoring that, and he was able to participate in it. He was able to be interviewed. He was able to tell the stories. And now this book sits with all sorts of tributes and pictures and everything. And as he looks at it, he now is like, oh, I remember. Or then he'll be able to recall a story. So legacy projects are huge, and it's important again for the future generations. We do a lot of that, a lot of the vigil planning. So that's where, the funeral homes get involved. And what does that look like? What, as that individual is actively dying, what information does the family need to have? How do they want to be honored? Are there any individuals they don't want in the room? Making sure that the family understands that the hearing is the last thing that goes. So please be mindful of what you say, because they can hear everything. And, I had one client that really wanted quiet space. So we created just a chair outside the room where anyone who was getting ready to enter had to sit for a minute and take a breath. And then they walked in, and it just creates that solemn sacredness. That's a big deal. When there's also, there's individuals that are in tremendous pain and strife and might not have family. That work is all about the human touch, the conversations, the bridging the gap from moving it from fear to being understood and to being comfortable, to being able to be look at their life in such a way that, yes, it was hard, it was tragic, but look at the beauty. And as the doulas go in and are having these conversations, that person melts. And that's what we want, because I call it the harmonious hum. And I think you've heard that. It's exactly that. It is a hum. The actual transition can be hard. It's like labor. Labor is hard. That's what a death looks like. Not all the time, but it definitely can be like that. So even knowing that that individual is going to be going through some hard physical labor, but also being able to witness it and being okay. And as the family and the young children around are watching, it also just continues to let them understand, like, this is a part of life. It can be beautiful. You're right here. You're witnessing it. Do nothing but send love to that person. That's what we do.
I love that. It makes perfect sense to me. And I think so many families We are disconnected from death and dying, our
Yeah.
society. We've had the luxury of being kind of separated from that. So when we're in the midst of it, I really think that we need a guide.
Yeah.
And we need some guidance and someone who has some experience with. I think that's why hospice and doula work is so important, because there's guidance there.
Yes,
And I think it
exactly.
helps people.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, you've used a phrase I'm not familiar with, compassionate transformation.
Yeah.
What does it mean, and how do you use it in your work?
Okay, so I'm going to read. I wrote something.
Okay.
All right, and I was like, oh, this is really beautiful. I need to read it. When sitting bedside someone who is dying, the doula not only brings answers or fixes, instead they bring steady presence, a reminder that this time is not about abandonment, but about accompaniment. A hand held, a quiet breath shared, a story remembered. These small gestures become bridges between the living and the dying, weaving love into every moment. Families often arrive with heavy hearts, burdened by anticipatory grief, confusion, or the weight of the unspoken words. Through gentle guidance, the doula creates a space where honesty and vulnerability are safe. Safety is key. In this space, tears flow without shame, forgiveness can be spoken aloud, and silence can be honored as deeply as words. The family begins to see death not as a solitary cliff edge, but as a communal journey walked together. The transformation is often subtle, yet profound. A daughter who feared saying goodbye finds peace in singing softly at her mother's bedside. A spouse who felt helpless discovers meaning in simply being present. A dying person, once restless and afraid, begins to relax, held by the assurance that they are not alone.
May we all have that when we're dying.
Absolutely, and that's the goal.
That is wonderful.
That is the goal.
Can you give us, you've given us some examples already, but can you give us some powerful examples of doula work and compassionate transformation?
Yeah. This one case that comes to mind, this gentleman, he was done. He was done with treatment. He was just, we thought that he would only have 4 days to live after he was released from the hospital, ended up going on hospice, and he lived for a month. He wanted to create a space. He wanted us to go into his home, make sure that his hospital bed was where his actual bed was so his grandchildren could be there with him. And they were little. They were 2, they were 4, and they were 6, okay? They all rallied with him. They watched TV, they colored, they made pictures, they took Polaroids. The whole wall was covered. This individual, he was eating everything he wanted to, bagels and coffee and cookies and black and white cookies. The children were to the point where they were making decorations for Grandpa's grave. Okay? The adult children, the parents of these little grandchildren, were a little shooken. They were shocked. They were afraid that this was going to be a scarring experience. But what happened is we were there the whole time. We had hospice in, we had aides in, the adult children were there. We were providing food and flowers and just making sure the whole system was working. And as the gentleman started to transition, it was labor. It was physically labor, and we were all there. The children were there. The adult children were there, the aides, I was there, and we took turns rubbing his back, rubbing his feet. The children were kissing him on the forehead. It was beautiful. A couple of days, after the death, there was a month later, there was a beautiful memorial service. All these little kids had their pictures ready to be displayed for him on his grave. I mean, to me, that was the best that it could possibly have gotten. There was a lot of work because the adult children, there was conflict. There's always conflict.
Sure.
So we managed that. We were able to open up space for them to have conversations and not be threatened, taking that fear out of it. It's like, look, this is okay. There's stuff that's happened. And what you find a lot of times is that whatever the conflict is at the moment of someone else's illness and death has to do with another death.
Yeah.
So, the mother had died years before and something happened. And so just resolving that
Yes.
now this family is well connected. The children are flourishing. It was a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
They didn't need a bereavement group.
Yeah.
They worked hard.
They were the group.
Well, they were the group. It was. That's a beautiful moment there. You know, unfortunately, we had a very young client. He was 4 years old. And we were able to go into the home and provide services mainly for the parents. The child was pretty much unconscious the whole time. They had requested Reiki and massage, so we brought in a Reiki master, we brought in a masseuse. The child was extremely peaceful. The parents wanted to talk about the experience that they felt he was having during these sessions. They ended up creating just beautiful murals, basically. Beautiful. Probably, I would say, at least 4 feet by 2 feet wide. Gorgeous, of this child's soul journey.
Wow.
It was incredible. It was incredible. Appropriately sad for sure, because he was way too young. But that to me was the ultimate.
Well, I want to thank you because I now know much better about doula work.
Yeah.
And also compassionate transformation. Thank you for inviting
You're
us.
so welcome.